Even though they're currently being sued because it appears that some of their products kill people, AstraZeneca have just done a £650 million deal with the British government. Meanwhile, the process of taking COVID shots is being normalised, like flu shots, something you should do every COVID season. Should we be having a deeper look at the relationships between big pharma and the government, or should we just be taking these shots all the time and crossing our fingers? Actually, I can't uncross these. Is that a side effect? Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Thanks for joining us on this voyage to truth and freedom. Remember, you can join our movement and support our work by clicking the link in the description and getting an extra video every single week, like this week's video on displacement theory. Is it real? Is it a right-wing conspiracy theory? Or is it indeed a policy? Fantastic video. You have to click the link to see that one. Also, we have regular conversations with fascinating journalists and leaders. Join us every week. It was Rand Paul last week. It'll be Bobby Kennedy next week. Fantastic people from the political and journalistic field that help us to expose and understand stories like this one, even though we can all probably understand it just by looking at the available information. The British government have announced in the form of Jeremy Hunt, the rhyming slang Chancellor of the Exchequer, who just announced that they've done a $650 million deal, or about $880 million deal with AstraZeneca. If you've heard of AstraZeneca at all, it's because it was the Bill Gates connected vaccine that it seems caused blood clots and was withdrawn in many countries relatively early, perhaps not early enough. So are there curious deals being done between big pharmaceutical companies and the governments? You know there are, of course. And what is the nature of these deals? And is it sensible to be deregulating this industry at a time where regulation appears to be exactly what's needed? Let's have a look at Jeremy Hunt making this announcement. Let's have a look at Mandy Cohen, the new head of the CDC, saying that you should be taking these shots all the time now. Don't think about it. Just make it natural, impulsive, reflexive. Certainly don't think about it. My God, you might come to all sorts of conclusions. And also, we'll be considering some of the consequences and concerns around vaccines and whether or not those concerns are being correctly analysed and looked into, and whether or not the data is being made available for us to make sensible and informed choices.
I have long believed we should be manufacturing medicines as well as developing them. So I can today also announce a brand new investment by one of our greatest life science companies, AstraZeneca, led by mon ami, the irrepressible Sir Pascal Soriot.
Like, why are they start giving them like props and stuff? The irrepressible, that old rapscallion. Come on in here, Pascal, and tell us why people have got blood clots. These are ongoing legal matters, so I have to talk about them with a degree of sensitivity. But certainly the AstraZeneca vaccine was withdrawn somewhat hastily across the world, in some places more quickly than others. Curiously, it took longer to withdraw those products in the UK, where Pascal appears to have some pretty cosy relationship with our Chancellor of the Exchequer. That's the person that's in charge of the Treasury and how money is spent. And you'll note that they seem to be having some interesting financial transactions with AstraZeneca.
AstraZeneca made their COVID vaccine available to developing countries at cost, as a result saving over 6 million lives.
What Jeremy Hunt is not mentioning here is 97% of their research costs came from you paid for it. It was taxpayer funded, and yet AstraZeneca made $4 billion worth of profits. Extraordinary.
And today, because of the government's support for the life sciences sector, they announced plans to invest £650 million in the UK to expand their footprint on the Cambridge Biomedical Campus.
Expand their footprint on the surface of your heart. It's very interesting, isn't it, to see how in Parliament or political discourse these type of deals are at the forefront. I can't believe we've not sort of watched this before and noted, oh wow, it's just like a bunch of deals being done. They're just talking about using taxpayer money to facilitate AstraZeneca profiting. Then AstraZeneca pose as if they're investing to return the favour. Essentially, we're looking at the managerial elite political class doing deals just in plain sight.
And fund the building of a vaccine manufacturing hub in Speke in Liverpool.
That's what the people of Liverpool need, a vaccine factory. If you are in Liverpool, let me know in the chat how you feel about having that vaccine factory in your fantastic city.
Oh, thank you very much.
Again, these kind of deals are happening all over the world. Moderna are building factories. Presumably, new industry will have to be set up in the United States as well, because COVID shots are becoming normalized and regulated regulated, or at least not regulated enough. They're becoming regular. It's been suggested that you just take them all the time. There was a news story, wasn't there, of course, that you should just treat it like colds or flu, which wasn't how we really treated it at the time. But certainly now that they're preparing to make it a normalized jab, perhaps because Pfizer's profits are plummeting and the idea of it becoming normalized, if not mandated, is attractive and at least offers some stability for investors. I don't know. Let me know in the chat.
More investment, better jobs in every corner of the country.
Jobs. That's what it's creating, jobs. For example, someone's got to cure all those blood clots.
In a long-term budget for growth from a Conservative government.
Okay, but it's not just here, of course, in the UK where vaccines are big business. They are a global industry, and Mandy Cohen, new head of the CDC, explains that you should be taking vaccines basically all the time. I mean, that guy that took 217, he's like the new Kanye West, isn't he? I read about him all of the time. Man took 270 vaccines, still alive, there's no side effects here. Why would anyone need to take that many, and why would it generate this many headlines?
We need to see everyone get an updated flu shot and an updated COVID vaccine.
In a way, I'm starting to see the connection between pandemics and wars. They're just things that are being perpetuated now. It's good to have drugs that you need to continually take, whether that's Ozempic or these kind of medicines for viral infections or Ukraine v Russia. It's not something you want to end with like surgery and get over and done with or finish with diplomacy. It's something you want to perpetuate, like the Afghanistan war. I suppose that's sort of part of the demands of finance, reliable financial models. As Julian Assange said, the business of government is to transfer public money into private hands. And note how these stories tacitly are ultimately about that and fortifying those relationships and somehow making it like we're getting a good deal.
We also shared on Friday that we expect and anticipate there's going to be an updated COVID vaccine coming this fall, right? So plan now, right? It's March, so you can think ahead.
Also connected to marketing, this new vaccine's going to drop. Line up now, get ready, y'all.
When you're going to get your flu shot in the fall, you're going to get another updated COVID vaccine. And the reason for it is because this virus continues to change. That's okay. We can stay one step ahead of it. We have the tools to do it. We just need to use them. So FDA, CDC has started that process just like we do with the flu shot.
So they've gone from this pandemic and this virus is so serious it's going to kill you, like Ebola or HIV, to this is something that is normal, that you have to take medicine for all of the time, like the flu. It's essentially an exercise in marketing.
We've started that process to update the COVID vaccine already for this fall. And so we just want folks to, again, already start thinking about that.
Hello there, you awakening wonders. I am interrupting me in order to tell you something very important. It's a message on behalf of some of our sponsors. Are you ready to delve into the realm of self-care and spill the beans on a skincare gem that's as pure as honesty itself? In today's fast-paced world, we face skepticism towards authorities, uncertainty about product origins, and hidden toxins in everyday items causing significant and chronic stress. Do you know chronic stress can fast-track aging, leaving your skin looking old and wrinkly? Studies show that prolonged stress ramps up inflammation, breaks down collagen, and messes with the skin's defenses, all leading to premature aging. Enter Charlize, the antidote to life's toxins, and my #1 toxic-free skincare pick. This luxurious skincare isn't just about appearances. It's about feeling good inside and out. This world may be toxic sometimes, but your skincare doesn't have to be. Most other skincare lines contain, I'm sorry to tell you this, cancer-causing ingredients. Not Charlize though. The entire product line is toxic-free. That's what I love about it. By the way, Charlize products contain tangerine orange peel, which not only promotes immunity and enhances your mood. Look at the mood I'm in. I'm crazy with glee. But it also promotes cell turnover, hydrates and cleanses the skin, and helps improve blood circulation. Better blood flow means more nutrients and oxygen are delivered to your skin, enhancing its natural glow and promoting healthier, younger skin. Are you ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery and luminous skin? Head over to charlize.beauty/brand and unlock a 25%, I can't even believe I'm saying 25% discount with the promo code brand. That's charlize.beauty/brand, promo code brand to get that 25% off. Remember, my friends, trust, transparency, and self-care are the essential elements of a vibrant life. Choose Charlize and choose the path to inner and outer radiance together. Let's get back to our content. Support our partners if you can. Let's have a look at AstraZeneca's new deal with the government, and let's have a look too at AstraZeneca's legal situation with some of the people that have used their products and have experienced pretty negative side effects. AstraZeneca plans to invest £650 million, that's $827 million in the UK. Chancellor Jeremy Hunt announced on Wednesday, we just saw that. The money will be divided into two tranches. About £450 million will go to AZ's manufacturing site in Speke, Liverpool, to build out the company's research and development manufacturing capabilities for vaccines. The remaining £200 million will be used to expand AstraZeneca's presence near its global headquarters in Cambridge. So, after the pandemic period, which many people regard as both a logistical, social, psychological, health, financial and global disaster, one of the most conspicuous organisations that were involved, AstraZeneca, whose products were first highlighted as potentially problematic and then ultimately withdrawn, somehow in a position to invest £650 million in a deal with the government and start building out their infrastructure. Now, let's not get too doom-mongering in what that might imply about the future, the idea that vaccines are going to be a necessary part of everyday life. Indeed, we just saw Mandy Cohen say that they are going to be, that it's going to be normalised. But it's certainly interesting that after a period that many would regard as a failure, this is still being positioned as a success. What's your personal experience of that period? Was it a great time for you? Is your business doing better? Is your health doing better? Are your kids doing better? Do you feel generally happier? And indeed, do you specifically know of people, or have you yourself suffered from vaccine side effects? I know many people have. AstraZeneca's spending is contingent upon a mutual agreement with the UK government and undisclosed third parties. Who are they? Who are these undisclosed third parties? Disclose them. Disclose them. That's going to be interesting. They've not disclosed it because it's irrelevant. It's because it's relevant, as well as the clearance of regulatory hurdles, according to Wednesday's press release. So they're going to deregulate, whether that's financially or perhaps in other ways. You know, of course, at the start of the pandemic period, extraordinary deals were offered to pharmaceutical companies, including legal indemnity, which suddenly, given that AstraZeneca are literally in legal battles now, looks like something that was a little foolhardy. And what are these third parties? Who are the third parties? That looks like an opportunity for exploitation. Why is that not in the announcement in Parliament? As reported by the Financial Times in January, some inside government think AstraZeneca could ask for as much as £100 million in support. They want some government cash, said one official. It would be looked on favourably. So I suppose this is another one of those opportunities to use your money to supplement a business and financial opportunity. You are aware that there are subsidies given to energy industries, to big pharma, and that's directly, we're not talking about the way that public money is used to pay for research, and the profits, the $4 billion worth of profits in the case of AstraZeneca, are not shared noticeably with the people that paid for the research. Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has named life sciences as one of his 5 key sectors for the British economy. He set aside $520 million in his November-autumn statement to build resilience for future health emergencies and capitalise on the UK's research and development strengths. What that ultimately tells me is there will be more pandemics, and they've got a bunch of deals with big pharma companies that they literally use the word capitalise. They're going to capitalise on. The government said about £1 billion of overall public support for the life sciences sector was available. So they come at you from the front with AstraZeneca investing money, when really we're giving AstraZeneca money. Isn't that extraordinary? When they were claiming that AstraZeneca were doing essentially philanthropic work in countries that couldn't afford vaccines, what they don't mention while in your parliament is you paid for the research that led to the manufacturing of that vaccine. That's your government. You literally pay for Jeremy Hunt's wages, if you're British. You literally paid for the building of that building. It's all yours. Maria Eagle, the Labour MP, whose constituency includes the Speke plant, said the company was looking to produce next-generation vaccines on land adjacent to the current factory, which makes influenza vaccines. So again, the normalisation of these products. And by the way, the Labour Party is the equivalent of our Democrats. Jeremy Hunt is our equivalent, as his name suggests, of the Republican Party. But both parties are, whether it's for jobs for their constituency or because we're, heading the thrust of research and development, fully supportive of this corporate venture. How odd. In an election year, when there are so many questions about excess deaths, side effects, and the mishandling of the pandemic that neither side are asking. What does that tell you? What does that tell you about the nature of democracy in the United Kingdom? In October 2023, Merck's research chief called on the government to make Britain more welcoming to pharma companies. How? How could they be more welcoming? Would it kill you to have Merck tattooed on your face? Okay, give me a pen. Even as the US-based drug maker prepared to break ground on a $1 billion research centre in London. More welcoming doesn't mean they want like a banner and some bunting or a ticker tape parade. They mean give us tax breaks. That's what it means, isn't it? I'd like them to be more welcoming to me. Can I have a tax break? No. AstraZeneca set up a vaccines and immune therapies unit after it partnered with the University of Oxford to develop a COVID-19 vaccine. The vaccine was one of the most used around the world in 2021, but concerns about a very rare though, blood clotting side effect and the fact that it was less effective than mRNA jabs meant it has since fallen out of common use. At least 97% of the funding for the development of the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine has been identified as coming from taxpayers or charitable trusts. So we paid for the development of it, they kept the profit, then they want to be favourably welcomed along with Merck with tax breaks and celebrated for investing in communities when it appears that it's essentially a ruse to set up long-term deals in the country where they won't face financial regulation or indeed medical regulation if the last few years are anything to go by, because it seems that excess deaths is a subject that's being managed extraordinarily at the moment and a due reckoning is being avoided. The COVID-19 inquiry in this country was deferred, and Oxford University are just being used here as a kind of make-weight piece of branding to provide some legitimacy to what seems to me to be a rather exploitative venture, if you consider it exploitative, that taxpayers fund the research, a private entity takes the profit. Less than 2% of the identified funding came from private industry, the researchers said, a finding they said posed a challenge to the views of people such as Boris Johnson, who has said that the record-fast development of COVID-19 vaccines was because of capitalism, because of greed. Well, you just can't make that claim if a small portion, 2% of the funding, came from those resources, can it? It just doesn't make sense. Johnson made the remark privately, but the same message has been promoted by the pharmaceutical industry, which has warned against waiving patents for COVID-19 vaccines and other measures that could widen access by arguing that ownership rights and the ability to generate profits are a key driver of vaccine innovation. You better believe it. I mean, what other motivation is there? Because the data on its efficacy is becoming more and more diffuse, diluted, and difficult to read, and the data on its potential negative side effects, including death, is being obscured, obfuscated, ignored, and managed to an astonishing degree. No report on global pandemics and vaccine manufacture would be complete without the involvement of Bill Gates. Here is his involvement. Oxford University initially said any vaccine it developed would be open to qualified manufacturers to produce without paying royalties and priced either at cost or at a small profit. However, by August 2020, reportedly at the urging of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, among others, the university decided to change course. So it's a philanthropic organisation that persuades them to stop doing it for a small profit. I'm going to have to look up philanthropy again because I thought it meant being kind to humans. Throughout the last 2 decades, Gates has repeatedly advocated for public health policies that bolster companies' ability to exclude others from producing life-saving drugs, including the Gates Foundation itself to acquire substantial intellectual property. This continues through the COVID-19 pandemic. On top of steering the global health community towards COVAX rather than patent-free technology sharing in 2020, Gates bragged about convincing Oxford University not to open license its vaccine. Gates leveraged his $750 million donation to the university for vaccine research, even though its vaccine was developed in a publicly funded lab. Eventually, Oxford sold the sole right of production to AstraZeneca with no guarantee of low prices and an extraordinary opportunity for profit. So it seems like Bill Gates, or at least the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, though she's not so keen to have her name associated with that anymore, said that 750 million quid worth of funding that we give your university will be withdrawn unless you take out, let's call it guidance on how this drug should be marketed and whether or not it should be profitable. It's extraordinary that there seems to be the continual acquisition of IP, the continual assertion of power over organisations like the WHO, to whom, as you are aware, Bill Gates is a significant investor, which grants him the ability, of course, to manipulate or at least influence significantly global policy, and that globalism more broadly seems to be advocating for these extraordinary new social dynamics where none of us own anything and we're happy. Meanwhile, Bill Gates and his like acquire both intellectual property and actual land at alarming rates. What are we missing here? In April 2021, the company said it reserves the right to raise the price of the vaccine when it decides the COVID-19 pandemic has ended, which will lead to a potential windfall if regular booster shots are required in the years ahead to maintain immunity against the virus and its variants, which I suppose is why we're seeing Mandy Cohen normalising the regular taking of that drug in order to assure those profits continue. But maybe I'm being cynical, I don't know. As a Business Insider investigation from December 2020 revealed, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and to a lesser degree Moderna have together hired an army of lobbyists and contributed millions of dollars to political causes during 2019 and 2020, as well as censoring online information. What is the extraordinary power that these companies have, that they're able to broker these deals, become excluded from ordinary legislature? And why is it that they're continually investing in lobbying? I suppose, what, for ideological reasons? Let me know in the chat. AstraZeneca's influence team this year includes 21 registered lobbyists. It includes both in-house and contract professionals. Most have previously worked in government. In a way, if you regarded these matters from some perch on high, you would see that between government and private industry, the doors are revolving so quickly that it's essentially one interwoven entity, with employees from the government going to work at Moderna, with employees from the FDA going to work at Moderna, with lobbyists for Moderna or Pfizer or AstraZeneca lobbying the government that they used to work for in order to get favourable deals for Moderna and Pfizer. Sometimes I think we do live on a different plane of reality where we're not invited to access the same kind of information, so we can't see the reality we're living in. But once in a while, like with that footage of Britain's version of Congress, Parliament, you see, oh right, they're just doing deals. They're just doing deals in plain sight. Like Pfizer, AstraZeneca's lobbying efforts envelop a wide range of issues that could affect the fortunes of a large multinational company, including trade, Medicare, and patent and trademark matters. But the coronavirus is ever present in AstraZeneca's 2020 lobbying disclosures. The company is engaged in education around COVID-19 vaccines and lobbied on COVID-19 vaccine and therapy development, COVID-19 response and legislative policy changes, and COVID-19 response packages. They seem quite invested in COVID-19, even beyond the pandemic period. What they're not invested in is working out what happened during that period and whether or not their products are effective and whether or not they caused injury. Those matters do not seem to be getting the same amount of attention. AstraZeneca lobbyists have contacted government officials on Capitol Hill and a range of government agencies and offices, including the Vice President's Office, the CDC, HHS, and FDA. You'll notice these lobbyists are spending their time and endeavour, and let's have it right, lobbying impartial organisations, including some regulatory bodies, like the CDC, which has the power to regulate, like the FDA, that has the power to regulate, endorse, and license products, and the HHS. Even the Vice President's Office is meant to be an office of impartiality. I suppose what this story demonstrates in its entirety, whether it's Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor of the Exchequer in the UK, announcing this new deal as if it's a real boon, or the revelation that lobbying of even a relatively minor player at only $4 billion worth of profit, AstraZeneca, are able to assert considerable influence over policy, meaningful policy. You can get Mandy Cohen, who's meant to be just like a civil servant, a government worker, with no interest other than the American people's well-being, coming out and essentially advocating for policies that seem to benefit these groups that are lobbying her. Are you going to believe that that's a coincidence? In May 2020, the US government pledged up to $1.2 billion to AstraZeneca, which is based in the United Kingdom, to help develop its COVID-19 vaccine with the University of Oxford. Another way that we can observe what is glibly referred to as globalism is the kind of relationships that exist between governments and private and corporate entities in other countries. The ability for funding to be curiously moved around, the ability for deep state agencies to observe populations that are off their territory and exchange that information with the relevant government. What we're discussing and describing, I suppose, is a set of relationships that are not bound by what we would consider to be national profits. During the 2020 election, AstraZeneca's corporate PAC spread more than $766,000 among nearly 90 congressional candidates and several dozen other political committees and state or local candidates and party committees. Among congressional candidates specifically, the PAC split its more than $309,000 in contributions almost evenly balanced between Democrats and Republicans. You can make that point for yourself. AstraZeneca spokesperson Brendan McAvoy confirmed that it has lobbied in support of government funding to fight the COVID-19 pandemic and noted that making contributions to political action committees is a common, lawful and highly regulated process in the United States, and AstraZeneca is compliant with the rules and regulations that govern PAC contributions. And yet you'll notice one of the words that was most prevalent in the early part of this video was, in order to make this £650 million donation, it would require commitments to deregulate. McAvoy added that the company supports candidates in both parties who broadly frankly share the company's perspective on public policies, including those who recognise the value of our medicines and improve patient outcomes, quality of care and access affordability. Value. The value of our medicines. Somewhere down the list you hear patient outcomes, but some of the patient outcomes are worthy of scrutiny, particularly when it comes to AstraZeneca, because in this country there are currently lawsuits regarding blood clotting and serious injuries, including brain injuries, and the most serious injury I think that you can get, which is death. The Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine has been branded defective in a multi-million-pound landmark legal action that will suggest claims over its efficacy were vastly overstated. That does seem to be the general trajectory of information around vaccines in the pandemic period. The pharmaceutical giant is being sued in the High Court in a test case by Jamie Scott, a father of two, who suffered a significant permanent brain injury that's left him unable to work as a result of a blood clot after receiving the jab in 2021. A second claim is being brought by the widower and two young children of 35-year-old Alpa Taylor, who died after having the jab made by AstraZeneca, the UK-based pharmaceutical giant. The test case could pave the way for as many as 80 damages claims. I would think it could be a little higher than that, worth an estimated £80 million over a new condition known as vaccine-induced immune thrombocytopenia and thrombosis that was identified by a specialist in the wake of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine rollout. The UK medical regulator failed to sound the alarm over COVID vaccine side effects and should be investigated, MPs have said. I wonder if their inability to sound an alarm could be connected to the lobbying money that appears to be spent, the numerous deals between governments and these companies. I wonder if that in any way muddies the water or makes it complex when it comes to sounding alarms and effectively regulating these organisations. The All-Party Parliamentary Group on Pandemic Response and Recovery, the APPG, said that there was reason to believe that the UK medical regulator had been aware of post-vaccination heart and clotting issues as early as February 2021, but did not highlight the problems for several months. It's interesting to speculate how many people suffered as a result of that hesitancy, an aspect of vaccine hesitancy that we didn't get a lot of reporting on. Denmark and several other European countries suspended the AstraZeneca vaccine over clotting fears in March 2021, but the MHRA only published safety advice on April the 7th, by which time 24 million people had been vaccinated. 24 million. So it might be higher than 80, one might imagine. The watchdog also saw a signal for the heart problems, myocarditis and pericarditis in February 2021, but did not include the conditions in safety updates until June 2021. That was during a period where conversations about myocarditis, pericarditis, heart problems, heart attacks, fainting, passing out, side effects were being heavily censored online. So the groups and organisations that were involved in that censorship are also culpable, not just the manufacturers of the vaccines, I would argue. Let me know what you think. In effect, the MHRA licenses medical products as safe, knowing it lacks the processes to properly monitor adverse events, the APPG wrote. So, there you are. Deals are being done on an international scale to normalise and deregulate vaccine manufacturing so as many people as possible take them. Meanwhile, side effects are still being dampened down, censored and controlled. It's not a conversation it's easy to have. Excess deaths are being manipulated in order to make it appear like fewer people have died in the last couple of years using magical mathematics, but not as magical as the mathematics that allow for us to pay for the research and development and for pharmaceutical companies to glean and garner extraordinary record-breaking profits while continuing to ignore the legal consequences of the many catastrophes that took place during the pandemic period. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the chat? Remember, if you click the link in the description, you can join our movement and support our work and get additional videos like this every week, as well as joining important conversations with journalists that broke stories like this from the beginning, like Alex Berenson this week. Join us for that if you can. In the meantime, please stay free. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.